Hiya guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench, and it is now Monday evening, quite late, it's actually 20 past 10, and I have been this evening working on part 5 of the build of this beautiful little Spitfire from Airfix. It's not so little, it's 24th scale, beautiful kit. I'd recommend it to anyone, it's lovely. So what I've been doing with this build, because I don't think you've seen part 3 yet, have you, is kind of, rather than just, you know, gluing something together and waiting for it to dry, I've been kind of moving on and doing other stuff. So, you know, like for instance, when I've been working on the cockpit and waiting for something to dry, I've gone on and done the tailplanes, stuff like that. And then I've you know, sort of branched into the wing and looking at the wheelbase and everything. So what I've done here with part 5, I've picked the wing up again and started working on it and looked at the instructions and the way Airfix have suggested doing it with the wheelbase and then having all the ribs, not the ribs, the spars, that's the word I'm looking for, God, the spars, having them all loose and everything, and then once it's all glued together, then gluing everything down. Well, the problem is with doing that is nothing has a positive fit, nothing has a hole or a pin, and I am not in any way running down Airfix at all here, because what they've done, they've made this all so beautifully to scale. Having holes and pins would have meant holes and stuff in the surface, and if they'd have put blocks in with holes in, you know, with the cutouts in the ribs and stuff, we'd end up with sink marks. So they've obviously gone out of their way to please us all, especially people like me that moan all the time. But basically, because of the restrictions of injection moulding, they have to put in tolerances and clearances to allow for shrinkage and movement and everything. So in my filming of part 5, I came across a bit of an issue that I think would have bitten me in the ass if I hadn't found it. So I've corrected the issue and then sort of started talking about what I've done to correct it, and realised that my part 5 video was just turning into an hour-long bloody talk. So I'll take out the little bit of work that I've done on the fuselage in part 5, and I'm making this sort of add-on video about this wing. And so when you get your kit, or when you start your wing, you are kind of forewarned, because I don't know, because I haven't finished the model yet. I don't know if the issues I found were going to affect the final build, you know, the final how it all goes together. So I've corrected what I've done and got it all squared up. So please take a look, please bear it in mind. If you think I'm being fussy and stuff, that's fine, there's no need to tell me in the comments, I don't really care. But it's just for those of you that you know, like a little bit of advice or something. Maybe you're a new modeler and you're picking this kit up. It's a fairly simple thing to look out for, it's nothing complicated, but I've made it complicated because I messed it up in the first place, and I don't want you to do the same. So have a look, see what you think. Right, back with the wing. So if you remember in part 3, I think, we looked at getting these together. They're all together. I've gone round in there with some super glue and done the seams, and they're all sanding out. You've got rivets around the edge. I would suggest sort of come in with a pointy tool and just make sure they're still there before you start sanding, because you don't want them to all disappear and everything. So there we go. Right, so that's them done. And they fit in there beautifully now. If you remember, I removed some plastic from here, from this area here, to make them go in a bit further, because we had a bit of an issue with the ledge. So now you can see when we turn it over, you can see that we've got a perfect fit around there, whereas before we had a little bit of a plastic ledge sticking out here. So happy with that. So let's return to our instructions. Here we go. So they've told us to glue those bits in there, which we've done, and those pegs are still on there. They don't need to be on there anymore, so we can reduce the load, if you like, on the wing. There we go. And then what we've got to do is build these up into these. It's telling us to fit this part here, which I haven't done yet, and it's telling us to build these parts into that rib and then fit it in. And I wouldn't suggest doing it that way. I'd suggest doing it like I've done, and to get a nice perfect edge around there. A lot of people say I fuss and faff and I don't need to do that and everything. Well, yep, I do fuss and faff, but I'm showing you how I do it, and I'm showing you how to get rid of the issues that you may find with your kit and stuff. So if you know if you find it boring, slow, whatever, you can fast forward or switch off or whatever. There's a few of these builds going on now on YouTube, and I'm sure we're all working at a different rate. So get that one held down, and I also need to get it held down at the back. But anyway, we're not going to be worrying about that at the moment. So what I want to do now is get this part here in. We'll go back to how the instructions tell us to do. Get this part here in, and it's telling us not to glue it to that spar, but I'm assuming, to that rib, sorry, but I'm assuming they're telling us to glue it down here. And then they're telling us not to glue this here, but we glue that there. Use part 3 as an alignment guide for building steps 62 to 64. Do not glue until step 65 on page 15. So it's basically the same as we were doing on the other side. So I'm going to have a good look at these instructions and see exactly what they're trying to get across here. I think basically you're going to build up the wheelbase and then glue the spars in and everything. Right, so I'm sorry guys, there's a lot of talking in this video, not a lot of action, but kind of thinking about this out loud. It's a bit weird. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's stupid, I'm not saying the person that wrote it is wrong or whatever, but what they're actually doing is getting us to fit these pieces here. That's absolutely fine, so that's all good, but they're getting us to fit the spar and these ribs and then the wheelbase parts and everything, and then glue it all, and they're telling it hold each wing down on a flat surface. So I'd be tempted to, rather than do it this way round, what they're telling us is to dry fit all this and fit the wheelbase and then glue all that down. What I'd be tempted to do is dry fit everything and then clamp the spar down and just glue the main spar, because at the end of the day the most important part is that spar, because if the wings are sort of, if the dihedral's like this on one side and like that on the other, it's going to look daft. If one wing's drooped and one wing's bent up or whatever. So what we need to do is concentrate on that spar. Now, the spar won't stay vertical on its own, it needs these ribs. So we could take these parts of the wheelbase out because they're doing basically nothing. And we've got these ribs all clamped in. So these ribs are determining the vertical position of the spar. So I'm going to grab my aluminium blocks, as you've seen me use on the K2, and just see how straight this is. It's all quite floppy because there's obviously, it's full of holes, there's not a lot of strength in it. But we want this wing from this point here to be straight. So I want to clamp this wing to this bar. In fact, I'm going to move that. Oh, I can't. Can I do it? Yes, I can. Bob the Builder here, look, can he fix it? Yes, he can. So I just want to get that bar there, and then I'm going to get my large clamps. My English accent came out then, didn't it? And clamp that spar down, and then clamp just there, and then clamp in the middle, like so. So now that wing is clamped solidly to that bar and everything is straight. Okay, what's a little bit concerning is I've got that one a little bit too close, too much inboard. Just move it outboard slightly. There we go. So now we've got that wing clamped on there, absolutely solid. So whether all this is necessary or not, I do not know. What I am tempted to do is just put a peg on there to keep that spar in place, or that rib, and that one. That's all right, that'll be fine. So it's very much like the Hellcat. I think we need to basically make sure we've got the wings right, and then we're going to pull them all together. The Hellcat was a bit of a nightmare, as you'll remember. Now, looking at this, and the way these are, if I glue this now, I may have this spar all twisted. So I'm tempted to come along and fit the other ribs, dry fit them, just hold them in with pegs, just a couple of them, to make sure the spar remains vertical. So I think that's what I'm going to do now, and then I'll come back. Right, so I've added 3 spars. So I've added 5, 8 and 12. And sure enough, I did have it tipped over, so I'm glad I put those in, and that's given me the correct positions now. So now that we've got everything held down, we can put some glue in here, and we can glue this spar to the wing and live happily ever after. Now what I want to do is make sure I don't glue these ribs in, although I suppose it doesn't matter if I do. But basically I just want to get that spar glued, and like they say, have it on a flat surface. I know that is a flat surface, I know it's all clamped, and we're good to go. So I'm going to remove this peg from here so I can get some glue into there. Just holding that rib down. I just want to get some glue into there and into there. Here we go. As I say, if it does capillary underneath those ribs, I don't think it really matters very much. I think we'll probably assemble it all and paint it all together anyway. So there we are, that's that done. So that could be left for a few hours to dry, and we know we will have a nice straight flat wing. Okay, I'm back again, and once again I'm sorry, it's going to be lots of talking. I found a small issue that could catch you out if you're building one of these, and it's something that I'll be wary of for when I build another one, because I'm going to build another one. As I said, the way the instructions go, they tell you to fit all these spars and ribs in and stuff, and then fit the wheelbase in, glue them, and then when they're all glued, glue everything else in place. There is an issue with this main spar in that you've got on the end of the wing, if you can see here, you can see that you've got the main spar here. In fact, if I undo that, you can see you've got the main spar, and on the end of the wing there's like a stopper that it butts up against. The main spar is slightly too short. Whether it's just my kit or with mould shrinkage or whatever, I don't know. Moulding shrinkage, should I say. But if I actually bring both wings up so that those touch the spar, I end up bending the spar, and it ends up, you know, with a hell of a lot of dihedral. Now, when I first fitted all this up, obviously there's no positive location for anything. It's all just, the only positive location you've got is where these ribs go through the wing with these hooks on them here. That's the only positive location you've got, is there where that hook is. The rest of it is all like a prick in a top hat. Now, and that's not I'm not slagging off Airfix, it's just the way it is. Now, I actually glued this spar on, okay, everything was fine, and then I noticed I had a big gap over here. So luckily I'd only glued it about an hour previously, so I was able to come in with, if you ever make a mistake on a model, if you come in with the extra thin and just brush extra thin into the joint, you can generally peel it apart without doing too much damage. Now I hope, because this section here is quite thin, so I'm hoping when I take this bar off the bottom I haven't damaged all the surface detail here. If I have, I'll just have to get another sprue from Airfix to start again. But it would be unfortunate, wouldn't it? But basically, what I found out, what I discovered after looking around, because with it all one way, everything is shifted one way. So what I did was, if you look in here, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this on the camera. Can you see in there is a recess? There is a recess in the surface here, and on the side there are 2 lugs, and those lugs will line up perfectly with that recess, and that then means you've got your spar centered. Okay, so what I did was clamped it in that position, and then clamped this bar back on again, and then clamped it all on there to get the wing nice and straight. To be honest, I'm not sure it would be much of an issue if you didn't do that, if it was slightly out. But the trouble is, all the wheelbase and everything was lopsided. When I looked at it, I could see that the gap, you know, the size of the step there between this rib and the wheelbase was a lot different between that on that side than it was on that side. And you know, the whole spar was sort of off center, so I'm not sure if it's going to push the fuselage off and exaggerate. You'd end up with your wing, you know, you might have your fuselage on here and it might be like that sort of thing, exaggerated, you know, because the spars off. I'm not quite sure. So that was what I made the decision: take it apart, start again, get it centered from the center, and then go from there. As I say, you can obviously, because it's a lamination, you can push the bottom up, and obviously as you push the bottom up, the spar will butt into it. But to get that to go like that, you end up with a hell of a lot of dihedral. So just a little warning for those of you that haven't built it, and probably something worth looking out for. The other thing I guess you could do is add some sort of 10 thou plastic cards to the end, or 20 thou plastic card to the end, and then get it centered like that. But yeah, it's been quite the nightmare, to be honest, and I just hope I haven't destroyed the wing when I take the clamps off. So there we go. This video has been so much talking. I think what I might do is edit out the bit where I've worked on the fuselage and got that together, and then just make this as like a separate little crappy little video, because it's just all I've done is just waffle and waffle and waffle. So I think that's what I'll do. So part 5 will be continuing on from after this mess here that I've made. Not a mess of Airfix, it's my mess. So there we go, guys. As I said at the beginning, this has been taken out of what I was actually filming and sort of made as a standalone video, just as a little sort of guide. I know there's a few people building this. I haven't watched any of their videos because I don't want to be biased, if you like. You know, it's like if I watch somebody's video, there's a few I've seen and they've sort of flashed up, and you know, they said that the radiators were wrong because the instructions are the wrong around or something. Then I'm jumping in without having an issue, and what I want is for you guys that watch me, and some of you I know watch only me, I want you to see me have the issue, see how I get around it, and go from there. So there we go. Right, so that's that for this. I'm going to call it a day for this one. You have been warned. You know, I've shown you my alternate process of putting it together. I don't think it would be any different if you did it following the instructions by gluing the wheelbase in and stuff, because everything, you know, as you can see, everything is like a prick in a tire. Everything's just really floppy and loose. So you know, you need to make sure that you're happy with what you're doing. But I think the main thing to do is make sure that spar is centered between those end pieces, and then you'll be good to go. So thank you for watching this little extra, and I'll see you all soon for part 3 or 4, whatever's coming next. Bye for now.